Well, good morning and welcome again to our online Bible study. The theme is Your Kingdom Come, Your Will Be Done. As disciples of Jesus Christ, this is our mission. This is our game plan. How are we going to bring the kingdom of God into reality? And, I said a game plan, and I think about sports because that was what I was involved with as a young person. And you have to have a game plan against the opponent, the one that you are coming against, to see who's going to win the contest or the battle in this case. But we have to realize that the kingdom of God is it is a reality, and God wants to use us to bring it into reality, into the world around us. But we have to understand that we have an enemy. And that enemy is opposed to us and wants to prevent us from achieving our goal, and will do anything and everything to stop us. So we have to know what to do in those times when it seems like we're being bombarded. When you're being bombarded, it really means that you're making progress and that the enemy is upset and that the enemy is doing an all out assault on you to try to deter you or to try to get you to quit and give up. And many times there are people that are in those situations where they have so much stress and so much opposition coming against them that they throw in the towel and they say, I can't take any more, and they do quit. But the kingdom of God means that we have to persevere, and we also have to know who is our refuge in those times when we're faced with the enemy. So today we're going to be looking at the Psalm 60. And this is verses 1 through 10 in Psalms 60. And it begins with a heading giving some details or some information before it really gets into the text of the psalm. So it begins by saying, to the choir master. So it's addressed to the choir master. Why is that important? Many of our church services, our church services, what do we have? We have music. Why do we have music? Music is one of the ways that we fight our battle. A lot of times when we're down, when we're depressed, if we can put some praise music on, then it lifts and builds up our spirit. There's something about it that rejuvenates us. And so the choir master was very important. That's why King David assigned choir masters. And this says it's according to Shushan Eduth. This is a miktam of King David for instruction. For instruction about what? When he strove with Aram Naharaim and with Aram Zobah. Now this is in the Syrian territory. And when Joab, on his return, struck down 12,000 of Edom in the valley of Salt. So again, this is giving our historical context and the reason or the purpose or the inspiration or the motivation that David felt inspired to write this. So then we begin with the text itself of the psalm. And it begins by saying, "Oh God, you've rejected us, broken our defenses. You've been angry. Oh, restore us. You've made the land to quake. You've torn it open. Repair its breaches, for it totters. You have made your people see hard things. You have given us wine to drink that made us stagger. You have set up a banner for those who fear you, that they may flee to it from the bow, Selah. That your beloved ones may be delivered. Give salvation by your right hand and answer us. God has spoken in his holiness. With exultation, I will divide up Shechem and portion out the valley of Succoth. Gilead is mine. Manasseh is mine. Ephraim is my helmet. Judah is my scepter. Moab is my wash basin. Upon Edom I cast my shoe. Over Philistia I shout in triumph. Who will bring me to the fortified city? Who will lead me to Edom? Have you not rejected us, O God? You do not go forth, O God, with our armies. You know, as I've read the Bible many times, the Psalms, the poetry, I really struggled with for a long, long time. Poetry has never been my thing. I just haven't got in the hang of it, I guess you'd say. It's written differently than the way that you normally speak. And I just couldn't really grasp it. Some of the Psalms, yes, I love, but a lot of the Psalms, I just scratched my head and I didn't understand it. But a while back, I learned that Billy Graham, the way that one of his routines as far as studying the Bible is that every day he would read 5 chapters of the Psalms and 1 chapter of the Proverbs every day. And that way, you would go through the Psalms and the Proverbs within a month's time. And he did this on a regular basis. I mean, he did it. That was part of his routine, I guess you'd say. That was one way that he read and studied the Psalms and the Proverbs. I also heard that the founder and leader, Jerry Falwell of Liberty Baptist Church, he also would read the Proverbs every day. A chapter of Proverbs every day. And so here were 2 men that I had learned about a while back. And I said, well, I can do that. And because I've done that, now I've gotten more used to the Psalms. And they make more sense to me now than they did. But I still have a long way to go on this. But as you see, some of the Psalms, it will have these headings to it. And in this particular Psalm, it refers to this Psalm as a miktam of David. Now, I tried to find out, well, what is a miktam? What is that? What does that mean? And I couldn't find any conclusive answer to that. As Wikipedia says, miktam is a word that has an unknown meaning. But we find it as a heading in Psalm 16 and then in Psalms 56 through 60. So those particular Psalms, all of those say that it's a miktam of David. Now, I do know a little bit about the Hebrew alphabet, and I know that the letter M in Hebrew, it's mem, and it's a symbol of chaos. So you've got chaos at the beginning of this word, and you got chaos at the end of the word, and you got the letter Tav in the middle, and the letter Tav can be symbolic of a nail, or it can be symbolic of the cross. So from the Hebrew alphabet, the miktam, you have chaos on both ends, but you've got the cross in the middle. I think that is telling you right there, or summing up right there, what this psalm is all about. There's chaos going on in this psalm. David is, you can tell that he's stressed, that he's facing challenges. The nation is in trouble. So there's chaos in the middle. So what do you do when you've got chaos? But right in the middle is the cross. And we have to realize that in our own lives. Now, in the modern Hebrew, the word miktam has come to mean epigram, or a witticism, or a saying. So there's numerous collections of these sayings, of Hebrew sayings that have used this in their titles. But notice also that it tells us in the heading of this psalm that it's considered a national psalm. This is for the country. It's not personal, even though individuals are involved, but this is talking about what the nation is going through. It's a psalm or a song, since it's addressed to the choir master, that's meant to teach the people. Okay, so you're wanting to teach the people. And it's giving, in this heading, the historical context of what's going on. And we see that Israel was being threatened with disaster. It was being threatened by the Ammonites, the Syrians, the Edomites. So that is the situation that is facing the nation at the time that this psalm was written. Now, if we look in 2 Samuel chapter 10, this tells us, or gives us, an incident where we see the Ammonites, the Syrians, and the Edomites mentioned. So let's read about this before we get into the psalm. So verse 6, when the Ammonites saw that they had become a stench to David, the Ammonites sent and hired the Syrians of Beth-rehob and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 foot soldiers, and the king of Maacah with 1,000 men, and the men of Tob, 12,000 men. So you've got thousands of soldiers that are being hired by the Ammonites. They're hiring the Syrians to help them. And when David heard of it, he sent Joab. Now Joab was the commander of the army, and all the host of the mighty men. And the Ammonites came out. Now the Ammonites are descendants of Lot, and they were on the eastern side of the Jordan River. So the Ammonites came out, drew up in battle array at the entrance of the gate, and the Syrians of Zobah and Rehob and the men of Tob and Maacah were by themselves in the open country. Now when Joab, the commander of David's army, saw that the battle was set against him, he knew that he was in trouble. The battle was set against him, both in front and in the rear. So he was hemmed in on both sides. So he chose some of the best men of Israel and arrayed them against the Syrians. The rest of his men he put in charge of Abishai, his brother, Joab's brother. and he arrayed them against the Ammonites. And he said, if the Syrians are too strong for me, then you shall help me. But if the Ammonites are too strong for you, then I will come and help you. So Joab was dividing up his troops. He was taking the one in the north, and his brother Abishai was taking the other side. So, like I said, they're hemmed in on both sides. The enemy is trying to trap them. And so Joab says, be of good courage, and let us be courageous for our people and for the cities of our God. And may the Lord do what seems good to him. You know, we'll do what we can. We're hemmed in. We've got it coming and going. But we're trusting that God will do what's good in this situation. So the following verse gives to David the victory or the credit over the Edomites in the Valley of Salt. Nevertheless, Joab was his army commander. So it said in 2 Samuel 8:13, and David made a name for himself when he returned from striking down 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. Now there is a little problem here, because in the Psalm in the Psalm 60, it talked about 12,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. And here in Samuel, it's 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. So some are not clear whether we're talking about the same incident or not. But at least this incident shows that they were in dire straits. They were hemmed in on both sides, and they could have been very well been destroyed if the Lord had not helped them in that battle. And when they finished with that battle, that's when Joab and his troops, he's the commander, he went down into Edom and struck down the Edomites. So let's look at the geography a little bit. The Ammonites, they lived on the eastern side of the Jordan River. Okay, they were descendants of Lot, the nephew of Abraham. The Syrians were located north of Israel. And the Edomites were situated south of the Promised Land. So you've got the Hebrew people flanked on the north, on the east, and on the south. So that's what we're seeing here. David and the nation of Israel were being surrounded and hemmed in by their enemies from the north, the east, and the south. And this is why the psalm begins like this. Oh God, you've rejected us, broken our defenses. You've been angry. Oh, restore us. You made the land to quake. You've torn it open. Repair its breaches, for it totters. You have made your people see hard things. You have given us wine to drink that makes us stagger. So David, again, he was talking about how the situation was so dire. What are we going to do? God has forsaken us. God has rejected us. God has allowed this nation to shake. And you can just imagine, think about 9/11. What did that do to the United States? It struck fear in us, didn't it? Well, just think. Those were just a handful of people that did that. But with King David, you're talking about thousands. You're talking about military invasion. But on the other hand, King David argued that God had given his people a mission in the world which couldn't be taken away or lost. In verse 4, he said, you have set up a banner for those who fear you, that they may flee to it from the bow. The bow was like the missiles of today. That was the military weaponry that could kill. And so, in those days, when you were doing hand-to-hand combat, when you were foot soldiers, you wanted to flee from those bows that were being shot in your direction. And he's saying that God had set up a banner for those who fear you, that they may flee to it from the bow. A banner, as we know, is usually a long strip of cloth. It bears a slogan or a certain design. You hang it up in a public place, or you carry it in a procession, or, in a battle even. We think about the Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 4, where it said, "He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love." So the banner that Solomon saw was love, because the name Solomon, the name that God gave him, meant beloved. So Solomon felt that he was beloved of God. So the nation of Israel had been beloved of the Lord. And David had to be reminded of that. So, a banner is like a flag that's flown, or it's carried, or it's displayed. And it symbolizes what you stand for, or what you believe. It's like the American flag that stands for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For David, his banner represented his faith and confidence in the Lord, who is mighty to save, even against great odds. As David faced Goliath, he believed that it was the Lord, that the battle was the Lord, and that the Lord would deliver him. And that the Lord would be a refuge or a strong fortress to run to in times of trouble. That's why he said that we could flee to it. We could flee to it from the bow, from the missiles, from those bullets that are, being shot at us. There's some place that we can go. There's a fortress, a refuge that we can run to in those times of trouble. So the psalmist David goes on to say, God had spoken in his holiness and had promised that the seed of Abraham would possess the land of Canaan. Verse 6. God has spoken in his holiness with exultation. That means joy or celebration or triumph. God is saying, I will divide up Shechem and portion out the vale of Succoth. So here, the psalmist, if you stood on the summit of the hill there in Israel, the psalmist could see the land of promise outspread before him. Israel's not very big. And so he could see Shechem on the west and Succoth on the east of the Jordan River. And that would tell you how the breadth of the land. And all of that land had been given over to Israel by covenant with God. But, of course, it required the Israelites to lay claim of it. Now, I don't know if you can see on your screen very well, but you see this red line, and the red line is going from Shechem and going across the Jordan over here to Succoth. It's believed somewhere in this area is Succoth. So, standing up on a hill, and if you could see this map clearly, you could see the typography, but you can see that there's mountainous areas here. So if you stood up on the hill, you could see, on a clear day, you could see across the Jordan and into Succoth. So it's saying that God stretched out this land before the children of Israel. In other words, the Israelites, they had to fight some battles to acquire that land, but they had fought those battles for a long time now, from the time of Joshua. It's believed that Moses was around 1500 BC and that David was around 1000 BC. So for several hundred years, the Israelite people had fought to acquire that property. Now, it says, Gilead is mine. Manasseh is mine. Ephraim is my helmet. Judah is my scepter. Moab is my wash basin. And upon Edom I cast my shoe. Over Philistia I shout in triumph. So let's look at the map again. And again, you may not see this very clearly. I hope you can see a little bit. But here in the middle is the Jordan River, and it flows into the Dead Sea. On the eastern side of the Jordan River coming from the Sea of Galilee this way, down the middle, over here on your right, on the eastern side, I don't know if you can see it well, but it says East Manasseh. And going up here, going from top to bottom, it says Gilead. Gilead is within the tribe of the half-tribe of Manasseh. Now, the half-tribe of Manasseh wanted on this side because there was grazing land for cattle. But the other half of the tribe is on the western side of the Jordan River. So it's on this side, but you have Manasseh and Gilead. So he says, Gilead is mine. Manasseh is mine. Don't think just because they're on the eastern side of the Jordan River that they don't belong to the other tribes of Israel. They do. They are mine. And he says, Ephraim. Now Manasseh and Ephraim were the sons of Joseph. Ephraim is my helmet. So Ephraim is on the western side of the Jordan River. It's south of the other half tribe of Manasseh. And it says, Ephraim is my helmet. A helmet protects the head. And Ephraim becomes synonymous with the northern tribe of Israel, or northern kingdom of Israel, I should say. Judah is my scepter. Judah is here in the south, and it's the tribe of David. And God said that, promised him, gave him a covenant, said there will be someone of your descendant sitting on the tribe or sitting on the throne forever of your descendants. So a scepter is a rod that or a stick or whatever that a king uses. It's a sign of authority. But it says Moab is my wash basin. If you look and follow my pointer here, there at the very south, there's Moab. Here's the Dead Sea, and here's Moab. Moab was the descendants of Lot. And he says, Moab is my waste. Moab is my wash basin. And then it goes on to say, upon Edom I will cast my shoe. Upon Edom I will cast my shoe. So here is Moab, and south of Moab is Edom. Edom was the descendants of Esau, the twin brother of Jacob, who later Jacob became known as Israel. That's where the nation got the name Israel, from Jacob. But Edom had such hatred and animosity towards his brother Jacob, and it lasted forever. I mean, his hatred, even up to 70 AD, we know that the Edomites despised, hated, rejoiced that his brother Esau and their descendants were carried away by the Romans into captivity. And it says, over Philistia I will shout in triumph. And Philistia is over here. This is the Mediterranean. And along the seacoast was Philistia. So here you've got Moab and Edom. The Ammonites are on up above here. And then you have the Philistines. So you're surrounded by those who hate you. Basically is what it's saying. So to recap this, Gilead lay within the half-tribe of Manasseh on the eastern side of the Jordan River. Reuben and Gad in the half-tribe of Manasseh, they had chosen to live on the other side of the Jordan instead of going into Canaan. We read about this in Numbers chapter 32. Now the people of Reuben and the people of Gad had a very great number of livestock. And they saw that the land of Gezer and the land of Gilead, and behold, the place was a place for livestock. So the people of Gad and the people of Reuben, also we should say half the tribe of Manasseh as well, came and said to Moses and to Eleazar the priest and to the chiefs of the congregation, Adaroth and Dibon and Jazer and Nimrah, Heshbon, Eleleh, Sebam, Nebo, and beyond. The land that the Lord struck down before the congregation of Israel is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. And they said, if we found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants for a possession. Do not take us across the Jordan. Now they did promise that they would help the other tribes go in, and they would help militarily. They would send soldiers in to help the other tribes claim their properties. But they wanted their inheritance to be on the eastern side, not in the land of quote-unquote Canaan, but on the other side. But even though the half-tribe of Manasseh chose to stay on the east of the Jordan, that's what I said before. The Lord wanted to make clear that Gilead, which was part of Manasseh, the half-tribe on the eastern side of the Jordan, he wanted to make clear that they were still his people. They were still part of the nation of Israel. Gilead is mine, Manasseh is mine. Okay? They're mine. So the tribe of Ephraim, again, that's the son of Joseph and his descendants. They became synonymous with the northern kingdom of Israel. And I pointed that out to you a few minutes ago, that Ephraim is my helmet. A helmet is a protection for the head. And so Ephraim was the protection. It was the head of the northern kingdom of Israel when the nation had the civil war and they split between the north and the south. Ephraim became the head or the leader of the northern kingdom. Judah was the leader of the southern kingdom. Judah is my scepter. Scepter represented rule and authority. So David and his descendants came from the tribe of Judah. They were kings. God made a promise that he would always have a descendant sitting upon the throne of Israel. Now he says, Moab, what about them? They're not part of my kingdom. They're not part of my covenant. They're the descendants of Lot. Lot had sons by his daughters. It was incest. The daughters after Sodom and Gomorrah, when Lot and his two daughters went up into the mountains, they didn't think they'd ever have husbands, so they got their father drunk and had children by their father. So the Moabites were descendants of Lot. So Moab is my wash basin. Upon Edom, the descendants of Esau, who hated his twin brother Jacob. Upon Edom I cast my shoe. Over Philistia I shout in triumph. Remember that Philistia is on the seacoast of the Mediterranean. So you've got the nation of Moab, descendants of Lot, the nephew of Abraham. It was situated south of the tribe of Reuben, next to the Dead Sea. It was on the eastern side of the Jordan River, and on the eastern side of the Dead Sea. And this says that Moab was a wash basin. So what does that mean? The basin for washing the feet was a vessel unto dishonor. You think about the Moabites. When the Israelites tried to go to the promised land, and they tried to go into the promised land. And let's look at this map again to see if you can see. Here on the eastern side, here's Moab. And the Israelites tried to go through their land to get to the promised land over here. Moab said no. And they even, the king of Moab hired Balaam to put a curse on them, but God never would let them put a curse on the Israelites. So they not only would not give them access, so that they didn't want to claim the land of Moab, they were going into the land of Canaan over here. But the Moabites said, I'm not going to let you go through my property to get to there. And I'm going to put a curse on you if I can. So Moab, it says, is my wash basin. It's a vessel of dishonor. They would not help. They were relatives, descendants of Lot. And, they're all descendants of Abraham, of the same family. Lot was the nephew of Abraham. So Abraham was his uncle. But because they wouldn't help their relatives. And then Edom, it says, I cast my shoe. Edom is south of Moab. So Moab here and Edom here. It says, I cast my shoe at Edom, and over Philistia, which is over here at the seacoast, the Philistines, I shout in triumph. So the territory of the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, Jacob's twin brother, bordered with Moab in the north and the tribe of Simeon on the west. So the symbolic act of throwing a shoe at somebody is a sign of deep loathing and disgust. So the animosity and the hatred of the Edomites towards the Israelites was really unacceptable to the Lord. They were brothers, twin brothers at that. And then this psalm goes on to say, who will bring me to the fortified city? Who will lead me to Edom, the fortified city? What does that mean? Well, I'm sure that most people have heard about the city of Petra. And this is the ancient Edom is now called Jordan. But this city, this fortified city of Petra, is also called the Rose City because of the color of the stone. And what is it? it's one of the seven wonders of the world, in which an entire city is carved into the rocks or into the mountain itself. So it was fortified. It was hard to attack because they could see you coming. But you see, they were protected. They were inside the mountain itself. It's kind of like today we've got many, many tunnels that are underneath the surface of the earth that has been built by man. Whole cities that have been built underneath the surface of the earth, miles underneath the surface of the earth. And they built it so that they can be protected, so that they can have fortification. So this is what it's saying. Who can take us to the fortified city? You know, it's a place where it's hard to attack. It's hard to come against. Because you're out in the open, you see. They can see you coming. But they're inside the mountain and they can see out. So they can see you coming and they can attack you. So it's kind of like a fort, but it's more than a fort. You know, they're built right into the mountain itself. So without some supernatural help, it's going to be impossible for David to penetrate. And this is why David ends this psalm by saying in verse 11 and 12, "Oh, grant us help against the foe, against the enemy, for vain is the salvation of man. With God we shall do valiantly. It is He who will tread down our foes," or our enemies. What do you do when your back's against the wall? What do you do when you're being attacked on every front, at every side? North, east, south, west. That's what it was. The Syrians on the north, the Ammonites on the east, the Edomites on the south, the Moabites, and on the west you have the Philistines. They're surrounded by enemies. They still are. That little tiny nation of Israel today is surrounded. The help of man is vain. But with God, we can win. We can tread down our foes. So how do we fight our battles? We need to fight the good fight of faith. We need to armor up. We need to have all the armor of God on. We need to keep alert and responsive and realize that the attacks are going to come. And sometimes we may feel like we're being inundated. We may feel like we're being surrounded on every which way we turn. But the battle is the Lord's. The battle is the Lord's. To bring the kingdom of God into reality. You know, with our country and what we're facing today, we have so much corruption, so much evil, so much ungodliness that they just don't know what is really happening behind the scenes with some of these most prominent people in the world. But it's going to be exposed. But what do we do when we're being attacked from every side? We've got to stand strong. We've got to put on the whole armor of God so that we can stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. Armor up, gang. Fight your battle. But how do we fight our battle? We run to the Lord. He is our refuge. He is our strength. He is our strong tower against the attacks from the enemy. So God bless you.